thank you. Hold on, got it. All right, thanks everybody for joining tonight. It probably should be a short meeting with just a couple real focus items to go on, and then we can talk through any other updates. First of all, did everybody get a chance to review the meeting notes? Two things. Did everybody get a chance to review the meeting notes from the last from our July session? Any changes or updates?
Good.
Joe, you good?
I'm good.
All right, then I would say they are approved. Second of all, did everybody get a chance to review the comments from the June 22nd leadership interviews document that I put together that just kind of summarized our discussion from last time? If you hadn't, take a peek at it now. I'm just giving you a heads up because we're going to get to that in a bit, that I want to make some decisions. Great, Lamar's trying again. So we want to make some decisions as we go into the budget item and how we prioritize. I know we discussed it, but I'd like to be able to officially get back to Jeff and Chief Hawk about how we're prioritizing things. So just again, that's a heads up. So if you haven't had a chance to peek at it, now would be a good time to do that. All right, but first up is the website update. We are now at RFP stage. Melinda also sent out, hey Lamar, Melinda also sent out the RFP that the current draft. RJ's RJ has taken this one and put together an RFP. I've reviewed it. I think it covers what we were looking for, but I'd like you all to take a couple of minutes and review it. It's short, as we all expected it should be, and see if there is anything missing, because if not, we'd like to get it out this week. So you guys, and apologize for the late notification, but since we don't have a packed agenda, I figured we could spend a couple minutes and give you guys some time to take a peek at it.
Yeah, RJ and I took a pass at this week. We took y'all's template, divvied it up a little bit, put in some scheduling. If you think anything is too tight or too broad, please let us know. We do need to know whether or not, so technically this will go out if we get comments tonight on Friday. The request is for it to be back on the 26th, I believe.
Yeah.
And then we can either review it during the respondents during the tech committee and do it offline, or we can wait until after the October tech committee when we can kind of have a chance to recap it and adopt it at the first meeting in October. We can either do the last meeting in September or the first meeting in October, depending on how many meetings for tech that you would prefer to be within the time frame.
Okay. All right. First of all, does anybody see any changes? I think RJ and I went through all the functionality that we had talked about at the last meeting, and it's I believe it's all in here. Any other thoughts around the RFP?
I think it looks fine.
Any other? Mike?
Is this the online bill pay? Is that just a general statement that that encompasses pretty much anything that we want to have done from a base perspective, or are we going to
Yes,
get into specifics?
It would enable it would need to be a format that enables plugins from the different softwares between the town, whether it be RBA, depending on when we go to the new software, or Springbrook, or Edmunds, or Tracer, or we have alternatives for a variety of programs, and they would need to be adaptable.
Yeah, so Tracer has they use Municipay, So this, I think most particularly would come up in the Tracer side for the permit portal that has been a part of their quote. So that's already, the bill pay for that is already built in either way. Like as soon as we go live with that, we'll have it for that. But for anything, basically any other, type of fee that we could collect at the town, I'm assuming that Tracer would not cover that, even though it does have the credit card functionality. So
And our bank has that functionality. So if there's a fee outside of a software system, we could tie in through the bank program or, through the credit card company. So I wanted to make sure that it was flexible.
Is there also intent for us to accept app payments as well? There's a variety of them, Venmo, Cash App, that kind of thing.
That was not discussed. I mean, I guess it would really depend on, some of those services like PayPal, I know basically has a card that functions like a debit card.
Yep.
So, without having the technology in front of me, I don't know exactly what all the vendors could do. I mean, I wouldn't rule one out just because they couldn't take a Venmo payment, but I imagine if you can enter something like a credit card, it probably will go through.
Okay. Okay. And then maybe even if that is the case, that we have the if there's preferred apps that we use, you can always just throw those on the website as a gateway to say, hey, you can also pay this way. I think the more flexibility that we have for especially our younger residents to pay, we want to give them every opportunity to do that as easily as possible. So
I've never paid a bill with Venmo, but I'm sure some people do.
oh, I don't either, but I'm sure, like you said, people do. It's like, oh, if I can Apple Pay it, I will. I'm like,
Yeah, the question I would have on that is who pays the fees?
Yeah, because that's a Pennsylvania law thing, which is why we have to be so particular about our credit card processors, is we are not allowed to eat the credit processing fee. That always has to be passed on to the consumer. So, I mean, it's certainly something that we could look into if it's available.
I've paid for like I think it was a fishing license or a dog license or something online. And yeah, they tell you right up front that there's like the $2.50 fee on top of that.
Yep.
Which, yeah. So if we can do that on the website, even better.
I think it's something we will get to. I'd like to at least be able to do credit cards, just standard stuff first, since we
Well,
can.
I
We
wonder
can evolve.
regulatory if it even fits certain guidelines for some of this stuff.
Yeah, and I agree. That's kind of what I was thinking here, Joe, is that we need to do a bit of research as to what we can do. Let's at least get the credit card functionality and the rest of that in there, and I'm sure we can plug in, but I think we need to understand the, potential ramifications first. So Lamar, if you want to research that, you are more than welcome to, and let us know if that's something we can do, and any particular things that we need to think about to do PayPal or Venmo.
I'm not mad at that at all. I'll be happy to do that.
Great, thanks, Lamar. Beautiful. All right, any other thoughts on this RFP?
Do we need to articulate in the RFP that we want to ensure accessibility in the website?
Well,
Great
so
question.
there are a couple things that I've heard in the industry. One is that some will market that they are a totally accessible, government website. The other is that there is no such thing as a truly accessible government website unless you are captioning every single one of your videos. So, and those are like both things that I've heard from website vendors. So I'm not sure what the truth is there, but I will say that from my experiences with the couple vendors that I know have been either discussed here or internally with staff, all of them do have an accessibility component. So it's definitely something that we could add in the key service delivery features, like adaptability. I mean, they'll definitely all be compatible from different devices. Like that's just a baseline standard, but user accessibility, we could add that in if everyone's into that too.
That was actually a question I received, believe it or not, this week from Activities Committee, was about closed captioning on a Zoom meeting. So that is a functionality that individuals are looking for.
It's an automated way to make that happen, is there not?
Oh, yeah, there is, and it's relatively, to do it automatically is not 100% accurate, but it's pretty high.
It's
They've gotten better.
90%, yeah.
Maybe
Yeah,
even better.
YouTube, I think YouTube has that built in now for most videos.
Right.
So,
Right.
and that is where we post our meetings.
Okay.
Okay, let's pop that in here.
And then screen readers too, right? We want to, the way the website
Right.
is designed, we want to make sure screen readers can.
I
come
think
and
it's
access.
pretty low risk that we won't be able to get that, because I know I've spoken with a couple vision impaired residents in town. And they are successfully able to use our current website. So I would hope that whatever we're upgrading to has it included, but I'm gonna put it in the key services
I
section right
think that's
now.
yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Do citizens have the ability, I'm looking at the list here, that we have a request and complete tracking system, calendar, subscriptions, alert system, and with customizable user roles, is that implying that there's also going to be like individual profiles on the site so that you can just log in and get all your stuff? Is that the way we're intending it? go?
So the customizable user roles in the service delivery is for internal. So that would
Okay.
be referring to, like, you know, maybe Joanne can pop up and put something
Right.
about tax or garbage, you know, so departments can maintain the content a little more directly. I believe I've seen in Civic Plus specifically that the community alert system they have is pretty similar to the functionality that Savvy Citizen has, which does require you to create an account so that you
Yeah.
can
Mhm.
choose what type of alerts you get.
Right, and so if there's, the reason why I went there is because if you have user custom or customizable roles on the website, one of those roles could be citizen. And, if I didn't know if it was login by type or login by individual, but if we're doing community engagement, then yeah, you want that committee member or that public official to be able to, respond back. And of course, and we're expanding into saying, okay, here's my response template, for whatever the thing that they're talking about is, et cetera, like, so that's why I was asking about the individual profiles. The other thing I
Yeah.
wanted to know is are we polling the citizens as well? Is that something that we'll be able to do?
Well, so right now with the McCandless and Me, that's Engagement HQ is the name of that software suite. It is owned now by Granicus, which is one of the companies that's on the short list. They have embeddable quick polls right now. So we could do that if we wanted. I haven't looked into it too much because it hasn't come up, but I know that it's a thing that exists that I could, investigate. I don't, depending on what we hear from the people that respond, but I don't expect that the customizable user roles is going to extend beyond the back end. That's really what that bullet point is intended for. For the engagement piece, again, all of these, the companies that are in the range of service delivery that we're looking at, they all would provide a product. Either it would be Engagement HQ, if it was Granicus, or Civic Plus, I think, has something called Civic Engage. So those engagement suites that have things like the map activity, the surveys, all that, those are so specialized that you're not going to get them completely just built into the default product to have individual user accounts. That would be like an add-on that could be purchased additionally. So user roles would certainly come into play for front end users there, but probably not in the base website.
So the complaint and tracking system, can you elaborate on what that means?
Yeah, so actually, I think that we're going to be able to accomplish this through Tracer, but we still put that on the RFP because most of these service providers will have an option, and it's always good to know what's out there. But the way that Tracer handles it is it's you can go to the portal from the website, you can have consistent branding across both the complaint portal and the main website landing. And that allows people to report a pothole, or the Tracer system at least is totally customizable. You can add whatever categories you want. Like deer sighting, if we want to go down that road again. We've still got the deer map on McMee, but
Still got the
so-
scratches from the chicken.
Right, yeah, I mean, you can add anything, like the one that I saw demo, like, it's just straight up has a section that's animal problems, so. But, you know, code enforcement, public works service requests, all kinds of stuff like that. I think it's 311, if I'm getting the numbers right this time. It's basically a 311 system. So what Tracer does is it generates on the back end when somebody makes a complaint, it generates basically a work order for the internal user, whichever department is appropriate. And we can also enable a function that, like, we can change that complaint or work order status from pending investigation, or, you know, I'm thinking code enforcement specifically, because that's what would apply to my department. You know, is there a violation? Yes or no? Is it in court? Things like that. The person who reported it, if they provide their email, could get automatic, like, pushed email updates anytime we change the status and it moves through. So that's what Tracer
Kinda
has
like-
available, but it'd be interesting to see what the other vendors may provide.
That's great. It sounds kind of like when you're at work and you have a technical service center and they send you a response by email
Yep.
saying here, oh, you know, if your broken mouse is getting repaired or, you know,
Mhm.
problems with login.
It
Sounds
basically
great.
opens a ticket.
Right. That also makes me think that that maybe you have to register in order to check on the status of your ticket too, unless they give you some sort of, you know, link that links back to just the problem, you know, so.
Right. Yeah,
either
I
way.
spoke to Tracer about that specifically because, you know, there kind of are two ways you can do it. Some services will have you register and then you can log in to check, you know, or you have a complaint number, you can put it in. What Tracer does is they just send the email when it changes. So if you have not seen, you know, an email update, you can assume that the status is the same.
Okay.
Good deals.
Any other questions or comments on the RFP?
The rental management of the recreational facilities. How are, is it gonna be similar to how we do it in Allegheny County? Like when we want to rent a pavilion with a park, or is it something a little bit more robust? Will it be, you know, kind of like you can go anywhere from, yep, I'm just gonna check you off the box and say that it's reserved except for these spots? Or is it gonna give you just kind of like a full mapping? Is it gonna give you the whole nine, or is it just, hey, I'll take what I get?
Well, that's a good question. I don't actually know what the vendors are going to provide for this service. It's not something that I've been able to utilize in my other communities before. So that one's kind of we're going to see what's out there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Any other comments, questions on this? Are we all agreed that this is ready to go out with the one change we had for accessibility?
Yep, looks good.
Do we vote?
We can vote. Do we need to vote? Anybody, let's just say this, anybody opposed to it going out? All right, you got an RFP ready to go. Mike, what do you think about, since I know you were on vacation, what do you want to do as far as response times? My kind of thought is, if this goes out now, we've got, you know, if we want to try and review it by, you know, mid-September, that might be pushing it with the last minute vacations as well as, you know, school starting and the rest of it. Do we want to try and do a target that will hit the meeting in October, or do you guys want to try and push it up? Because it is going to take some of our time all of our time to review what we get back and answer questions and et cetera, et cetera. So Mike, what do you think? And the rest of you.
I think October makes more sense. I like that. Is there any other rush from like a budgeting side, or?
Well, I think we need to get it signed, Tricia, because we have money in this year's budget, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so we should hit October. We should plan on October. So worst comes to worst, we can fall back and get November. We need to get this done this year.
At least a good chunk of it done this year.
Yeah. All right, is anybody opposed to trying to get to the the first meeting in October?
No, I guess I would just say, you know, maybe I would say the best case scenario was we could get it done in the last September one, if all the cards fall and we all see it and it's, you know, it lines up, but October is probably, you know, September's the absolute best case scenario. October's pretty good case and November's the worst case.
I would agree. That's kind of, that, Joe, that's what I was thinking. If we get the responses back and it's kind of a no-brainer, then we could probably hit September, but my suspicion is it's gonna take a bit of research, some questions, Q&A back and forth, or whatever. So let's shoot for the October meeting. And then if we have to fall back to November, that still gets us time, or later in October, that still gets us time to get stuff done.
That's pretty good timing for me too, because the RFPs are gonna be sent to me,
Right.
which I'll distribute to the group as soon as the deadline closes. But I will then be out of town for most of the next week. So I'm assuming you all will probably want to confirm which demos we're scheduling, you know, things like that at that next meeting.
Yeah, if we need to,
Yeah.
depending on what they come back. I mean, because the demos with this, you can kind of see by looking at various towns' websites, you know.
Right, yeah, I mean, they always want to give you a whirl, you know, but realistically, like you can click some buttons yourself and probably figure it out.
Yeah, this isn't rocket science, I don't believe.
Well, you should have that kind of usability anyway, right?
Yeah. Okay. All right, good. Any other thoughts, comments, additions, other things we need to talk about on the website proposal?
I forget, did we say we were going to want to integrate social media channels into the website too?
Ah,
I guess
I
it
would say
depends on what we
if-
mean by integrate exactly. Like, do we want a feed of what we post on social media showing up? Because that's probably just a widget that most of them would provide.
yeah.
I would say avoid full social media integration for phase one. Maybe
Yes,
build in,
please.
you know, maybe reclone whatever the official Twitter feed is and kind of and maybe an Instagram feed or a Google folder with the pictures of, you know, whatever the last festival was, and call that a day for phase one. And then maybe if, you know, if we got a TikTok thing or something like that happening, maybe integrate it in phase two, right?
Oh,
I
I
don't know.
don't.
Those are my two
You know
cents.
what? That's not my problem. So I'll let somebody else figure out whether they're getting on TikTok. But
That would be a no.
I think the thing about content and stuff like that is like really what we want to focus on upfront is what are the widgets and the modules that they can provide, because we can, you know, this is going to be a living, breathing thing. It's not like the content that we put
Right.
out and we launch is what it is forever, you know.
If we have content though, just thinking deeper about this, that is truly helpful for the community. Like, okay, this is an acceptable space between your garbage cans, and this is how far you can or can't, or here's what a setback is, you know. Those complaints that may come in, if you have something on social media, like a YouTube video that explains it to everybody, you can lower the temperature on some very major issues really, really fast and say, this is why this is in McCandless, you know, because old man Jenkins down the street's really been ticked off about this and is raising a big stink. You can go, okay, well, that's why when we repave the roads, your lawn gets jacked up. I mean, it's just the so there's a place for it, is my point. And the limited amount of information that we want to have put out there from a social standpoint, we'll need content creators to make. But it may be worth it if we do have a number of issues that require that kind of thing. So to tell everybody like exactly what is appropriate, what isn't appropriate, or why something is, or even emergency management type situation where it's like, hey, we need to throw up a map and say, here's where you need to go in case of, or, you know, 50-year storm, whatever.
Well, and I think that's the good thing, especially with going back to those customizable user roles. Like departments are going to, you know, assuming that we get people trained in the various departments, they're going to have a lot more of an ability to just kind of jump and respond and be like, hey, we keep getting this question all the time. Let's just put this in an FAQ, you know, so that lessens the burden of updating things like that, or at least that's kind of what I'm thinking about.
Mhm. I think that makes sense. Okay. Good point. Anything else? All right, then I think, Mike, because we have the focus groups, you know, once, I think the focus groups were looking more for design of the website as we go forward with updating design and content and the rest of that. Is that kind of what you were thinking for those?
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, that once we have a platform, we can probably then kick those off, you know, December, January kind of thing to get them, you know, then because once we get the platform stuff going, then we need to talk about how we're going to change the design. Right, is everybody? Does that sound good to folks? Would say a yes. All right, I see thumbs up from Lamar. All right, good. Okay, then I think we've covered the website for tonight.
I'm gonna put together a McMe page, just so everybody knows, because we use that for the pension RFP as well.
Yeah.
So that's probably what I'll be working on putting it together tomorrow. So all of the requests for information, if we get anything like that, you know, we can post them as Q&As and all that.
Okay.
So that will be live by Friday.
Mike, you had something else?
I just wonder if, getting back to something Lamar said earlier, the second bullet under service delivery features, key service delivery features, should that say customizable internal administration, website administration user roles?
They'll know what it is.
Okay.
All right, good. Thank you. Thank you all. I think that we're making good progress on this. All right, moving on to topic number 2 was where I wanted to get back officially to the to Jeff and Chief Hawk, who spent, you know, time with us. We were putting together what their requests were and go back to them officially and saying, you know, here's kind of how we prioritize. And as part of this, Trish has also asked for like a 3 to 5 year strategic plan. I think 5 years probably too. A 3-year strategic IT plan to kind of prioritize what functionality we see going where. So I thought this would be a good place to start that. So if that's why I put together the comments from the leadership interviews, and I just would like to, right. Thanks, RJ. You know, go through what they've had and give a couple of comments back to officially, and I'll send it and copy everybody so you've got it. And you guys can apologize for those who were here earlier. The reason I'm not there is I got kicked by my horse on Monday, so I have a broken, yeah, a fractured sternum. So if you see me breathing kind of funny, that's kind of why. And moving around. So anyway,
Hope you feel better.
Oh, I'm home. I'm not at the hospital anymore. So that's a good thing. And it's just Tylenol, lots of Tylenol. But thank you. So as far as, if we start with Jeff Shoneman from for Public Works, I think a lot of his requests are he's gonna get a lot of value out of what we're doing from the administrative software, the finance software, as well as from Tracer. So I think the one request on his is the highest that isn't already there would be the GPS. And Trish, where do we stand? Because I know you've talked to him about the GPS module. It's something council wants. It was not in the original budgeting for the software stuff that we had talked about. Where is that? Are we going to be able to sneak that in this year, or is that going to need to be a next year kind of thing?
I'm sorry, Marcy.
Yeah.
Marcy, I lost the thread about the GPS. Is this
Truck tracking, salt
oh,
trucks,
for the trucks? Thank you.
Plows and leaf trucks.
Okay, for the Public Works. I got you.
Yeah, for
Thank
Public
you.
Works.
Okay.
Yep. Trish, you there, Trisha? You're on mute.
Sorry. So this is a council request. And so this is something that we were looking at for Jeff through the Tracer program.
Okay.
And we believe that through that 311 system and Tracer, that it has a GPS GIS configuration, and that'll be something we confirm.
Okay, so that is going to be going in with the initial acquisition of Tracer?
It'll depend on their implementation timeline, and I have
Okay.
not looked at that, but that's, it was not part of the original
I know.
phase one. But I know council's gonna ask that question in 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Right.
So I'm gonna have RJ firm up the budget on that because it's one of those things that we had initially forecasted to put off, but when
Right.
that became that, because it won't come through the financial module. That
Right.
won't be a capability of
Right, I
that.
know, I know. Okay, so I think the response back to Jeff would be, we're gonna see what's between Springbrook and Trazer. He's gonna see improvements across a number of his requests. And we're working on getting the GPS GIS functionality. Whether it will be in phase one or early phase two is gonna, we're working through that. Is that a fair response, Trish?
Yes.
Okay. All right, is there anything else then, as you all looked at like the comments from our interviews, and Joe, you were sitting in the interviews, and Melinda, is there anything else that we should put a high priority on that we want to try and get into the 2023 budget for Public Works?
I think the enterprise software, like we said, would cover a lot of it, so it's just waiting and seeing.
That was kind of my view. I'd like to see what, what improvements he gets from the enterprise software and the initial implementation of Trazer. And then we can go back to his requests, because as we talked about, it's not gonna solve everything. And some of these, he's still gonna have to spend more manual time than I think he would want, but I think we need to see what we can do first with what we're going forward. So that's kind of my thoughts. But I'm open for if anybody else thinks there's another priority on here that really needs to be in 2023, I'm open for discussion on it. Okay, I'm gonna take it as a no. Okay, so Public Works is gonna be happy once we start getting stuff implemented, at least better once we start to get implemented. I think one of the things we are gonna need, and we'll need to see what functionality potentially comes, but the next one behind the GPS and GIS is probably time clock.
Yes.
Is that something you want to put into the 2023 budget?
The time clock, if should be part of that enterprise software,
Yeah,
because the payroll human resources module should cover that.
but do we need a new official time, yeah, like a device, a time clock to punch? Are we going to try and move as virtually as, because my thought was we would try and see what virtual things like where the phones and the rest of it we can solve before looking at an official punch clock kind of thing.
RFPs, like, isn't an RFP or developed for that already?
For what?
The time clock.
No, not officially for the time clock, but we've already chosen Springbrook as the finance platform.
We're
So I think that-
we're finalizing that quote.
Okay,
They have an old physical hardware time clock
yeah,
that I think when he gave it to us, he didn't understand that it could be virtual, but also the reality probably is if we end up, one, putting some computers in Public Works takes care of the majority of it, and two, probably if you need to buy another physical time clock, it's maybe $2,000 at most.
okay. So it's not a big expense. It'll be under what the town manager can approve.
So just going back to the virtual time clock thing, those systems have been around for a long time. Is that something that the enterprise software, the Springbrook software, can handle as well?
Yeah,
Oh, perfect.
yeah, a lot of it, but we may need to work, I think, against, a lot of it's gonna come down to how we how things are implemented, but I think that's just one of the other things that we need to keep on the list. Is there anything else, Tricia, that from your perspective and other conversations that you've had with Jeff that needs to be, from a technology perspective, higher on the priority list for them?
We have a plan for their 5-year plan to
Okay.
put traffic signal upgrades in all the years. So I don't know that that's specifically technology, but the advancement of them is technological. So yes, that's another capital project that we're looking at.
Okay, well, and that gets into some of the stuff that we also talked with Chief Hawk about getting LPRs, right? On some of
Yes.
the,
So the traffic cameras with the license plate readers, we talked this morning about that. We're looking to put a couple in 2023's budget proposal and do it also like a phased process, because as we improve the signals, we would potentially add the cameras.
Okay.
So, I mean, if we're on that topic, I kind of feel like McCandless is this black hole right now.
Right.
And we have none and everybody else has them. So, you know, I think us as a committee should be making a recommendation to council to catch up on some of these, especially the police department things, because they're so far behind the other departments that we're already 5 years behind everybody else. You wait 5 more years, we're gonna be 10 years behind. So, you know, I from the technology committee, I really think we should be recommending the council that, you know, they find the money this year or find it this year and next year to get the LPRs and kind of get the whole police department's technology up to at least close to the neighboring departments, which we are not. You know, we had the break-in at the fire department on Sunday. If McCandless had those cameras, it probably would have went a lot faster than it did and not randomly find these people in Bedford, PA. So
They found it within 24 hours, if I'm correct. So it was pretty quick.
only because the car almost took out the trooper on the side of the road. So they had no, I mean, that's kind of my feeling on it, is that the police department needs help now, because we keep talking about, oh, we're gonna put a couple in. Well, if we put 2 in, it'll take 10 years. If we put 5 in, it'll take 5 years. And we're, you know, we're just so far behind in it. And even the AEDs are all older than their useful life is supposed to be, and the laptops are all past their prime. You know, I mean, I feel like the police department has got neglected in some of this stuff, and you know, I think we should make the recommendation to council to kind of accelerate this. They can choose to do what they want with it, but you know, we're gonna play catch up on this stuff forever.
And the technology is getting cheaper and cheaper too. I mean, you know, before you would spend the same amount of money, like you said, for just one. Now you can get 10, you know,
Right.
for the same price. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Hey, do we have how many lights do we have? Is that, are those metrics available, and has someone gone through and
Aren't they like,
prioritized? this?
yeah,
There's more than 29 traffic signals owned by the town.
Okay,
and not all of them need it, but there's at least,
Right.
we have the list of the top 5 requests
okay.
that from Chief Hawk. That's, I mean, I agree with Joe. The police department is so behind. In fact, and Craig did a great piece of work on all the places potentially for grants for the AEDs. There's no reason we shouldn't be able to get the AEDs, you know, every car with an AED, with leveraging funding that's out there, frankly. Thanks, Craig, for doing that. That was a really nice, and that was a long list of places that we could tap into funding for those guys.
And there were even more available than just that list, but figured that was a good place to start at least.
Yeah. Yeah, so we need, you know, some focus on getting those and see what needs to be done on that. But then, yeah, for the LPRs, so I think we should be able to get the AEDs with grant money, and whether it's 100% or 50-50, we got to get those things replaced. And the same with the LPRs. I mean, as I look at this list, because that's where I was going to wrap up, is down at with Chief Hawk. I mean, we can talk a bit about fire marshal, but they're not as in bad a shape, frankly, as we are with the police, in my opinion. That's just my thoughts. So is everybody in agreement? I have no problem writing an official request for town council that we've spent the time, that would say something along the lines, we spent the time getting, the administration and public works up to speed, but that really the focus needs to be our first responders going forward. We need to get, just as Joe had mentioned, the ADs are all out of, they all need to be replaced. And there's lots of places that we, can get for money. The LPRs, we are a black hole. And frankly, we're kind of the butt of a number of jokes. Besides the fact that we just don't get things, get things done, that we know at least 5 that should be started right away. And to get that done. Any other thoughts or comments?
Sounds good to me.
Everybody in agreement?
What if we put in like up to, there's 29 traffic lights, but I think the number where they potentially could want the cameras is more like 20 to 25, because there's some that aren't really, like the one on Duncan at the Camels Crossing, you've got the one at McKnight, you've got the one in the middle at McCandless Crossing in Wesco, and then you've got another one at Babcock. So like, you don't really need to cover the middle one because there's no way to get out of there.
Ryan and I spoke about it this afternoon, and because of where Pines are stationed and where Ross's starts, we're not looking for every light at this point, but we do want to get some strategic ones at McCandless Crossing, as well as potentially on the lower portion of 19 that's not tied into the Pine and Marshall traffic system. So that when we replace them, that's when we replace those cameras. But like lower 19 near Sheets, or even the one light down at Perrymont, were things that he and I talked about today, that we were going to look to prioritize with the vendor and get some new quotes so that they were fresh for the budget process.
Well, so here's my thought. I think this is just going to help if I and I'll get it out to everybody for, your comments and updates, and I'm not going anywhere. I should be able to get this drafted this week. Kind of an official request to support this, that we think the highest priority as we head into, the 2023 budget is for our first responders. With these AEDs, and say, yes, we have about 29 plus signals. There's at least five that are critical. There's probably the plan, just as, Joe, you said there's probably 20 of them that need to be covered, and they need to be covered soon, not in 10 years, but, as soon as possible. Something along those lines, and you guys feel free to butcher whatever I put together, and, put comments back.
So are we talking just police cars, just police and fire, or like police, fire, and public works?
Well,
For the
this is LPRs, so license plate readers.
No, I was switching to AEDs. I'm sorry.
Oh, AEDs are, I don't know, who owns the
Police
AEDs?
cars, I think.
Yeah, we had talked about police. Who owns the fire AEDs? Is that the individual fire companies have them, right? We're not responsible.
Yes,
Correct.
yes.
Yeah. So it's just police.
I mean,
Okay.
yeah, I guess I'm thinking, these cameras are $15,000 to $20,000 an intersection, I think is the ballpark. So if we go on the high side and say there's 20, that's 400,000. And it wouldn't be unreasonable to think there's another $100,000 worth of ancillary items that they need. So I mean, just kind of the rough numbers, do we put it in as,
$500,000.
as a 500, up to $500,000 to kind of bring us, get them close to current. And, you know, word it in that, whether some of it falls in next year's budget or this thing, again, that's not really our decision to make. We can make the recommendation that, you know, they need all this stuff and we're way behind, so, and it's a rough estimate, but the sooner they start it, the better.
Agreed. Yeah, Lamar, we don't really have to, the money that for the AEDs, that's all, that doesn't come out of the town's budget since they've got their own organization for fire. So they've got the responsibility for AEDs and what's in the truck. What we have is responsibility for the fire marshal. You know, it would be a matter of helping, but you know, they've got their own budgets at this point in time. All right, I will draft something up, guys, this week, get it out to everybody. And please, yeah, feel free to edit, butcher, throw it away, recreate something else, do whatever, but then we can have an official document that I will send off to council. That we are, you know, this passionate about it. We do think that this is the biggest thing, because we haven't done that before. So I think that'll be a good statement to really put something official to council, an official letter to council. What do we think? And I will mention the AEDs, but also include like the list of places on where there's funding. And frankly, there may be grant funding for LPRs out there too. Do we know if there's any LPR grant funding available?
There is, as part of the traffic signal upgrades. So that's what we discussed this morning as a phase 1, phase 2, phase 1 to upgrade the signal, and then phase 2 to implement the public safety aspect of it.
But it has to be, Tricia, but I think that's in reverse. We have the public safety aspect, I think, needs to be done first.
But if we're gonna tear down the camera, or if we're gonna tear down the signal to maintain the camera, that was where we were at with it, is that the signal needs to be upgraded. And then once the signal's upgraded, we can add on to it.
Well, are you gonna tear down all the poles and put up all new poles for the?
That's the question for the granters and what, depending on the age of the signal, I can't speak to that.
Yeah, well, I mean, the McKnight Road signals are all new, so that shouldn't be a problem. And, you
I'm
know,
talking about more on the ones on 19.
yeah, well, the ones up on the flat should be, I mean,
They're new.
They were
poles-
put in 2012 or earlier.
So I can't think that the poles are gonna come down. I mean, it's a catch-22, because if you say, wait till you do the traffic lights, if the traffic lights get put off 2 years because you're waiting for a grant, then you're 3 years before the cameras even start. And I mean, just some of this just a decision has to be made, and that's the plan, so.
It's more of a matter of money and how we spread it around.
Yep, I got it, Tricia. But I think you can hear we're rather passionate about this.
I do. Everybody's passionate about every dollar they want, trust me.
I know.
I mean, I think we all, I mean, Craig, Marcy and I stepped into this knowing where this was when the technology committee started. And, you know, up here especially, a lot of things have got accomplished, but it seems like I think Craig did the LPR stuff like 2 years ago.
Yeah,
And it's gone nowhere. So, I mean, you know, it keeps getting rolled off and rolled off and rolled off, so.
It's been put in the budget every year since I've got here, and every year it's either been removed ahead of time or it's been pulled at the final vote.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, we can,
But it is a new council, and that's the intention, is to make that ask again this year.
okay, well, we are gonna reinforce that ask. I think it's, you know, it's our obviously text, and just again, to raise the awareness as we look across all of the town, you know, from a technology perspective of what needs to be done. I think we're saying the last 2 years, it was, we got to get our internal house in order. Now it's time to go out and turn and support, really focus on improving the technology for our first responders. Is how I'm gonna put it. And the number one to me are the AEDs and the LPRs. Anything else on police? I mean, we need, they need some new laptops, but I think we're getting those as needed, are we not?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else you guys want me to put in this, or any other thoughts right now? You can always get back to me, send me an email, send me a text, whatever, about other things that you'd want to see in this letter to council. I think it needs to be, pretty short and pretty specific to make the point.
I think that's the LPRs are the biggest thing that we're just light years behind.
Right.
I mean, even North Park has them all over the place now. So the counties put them in McCandless in their lights, and we don't,
Yep. Okay. All right, then, hopping back up to fire. I mean, I think the highest thing on Jeff's list, this pre-planning software. Tricia, have you had any other conversations with him on that? Or what his requests are for next year?
No, not on the pre-planning software. We talked about it during the steering committee as a need. And I think that needs to be worked out in conjunction with the fire departments.
Yeah.
They're providing me with their budget requests the week of the 16th.
Okay,
And I anticipate, some of that to be included in there.
okay. I mean, I think from his perspective, his highest priority is the pre-planning software. I just, I mean, I think he's okay, but that's my view as to what we need. That's about $11,000 per year. But I think Tricia, his requests, we need to help prioritize when those come in. Joe, do you have any other thoughts on Jeff Wisner's, comments from the meeting?
Yeah, I mean, that seemed to be the only one, but I also, and I'm trying to remember if the one he's using now got bought by somebody else and they just bought by Tyler and discontinued, so this moved to the new Tyler product or something else completely.
It did get bought, or it's been end of life, one of the two.
Yeah.
So it does it can't be put on the back burner for too long. I mean, he will see some improvements. He thinks that some of Tracer's functionality might replace some of the inspection software. So, which is Mobilize. So he might get some updates from Tracer as well. But I think the pre-planning software is probably the one that we need to look at for him. But it didn't sound as burning of an issue as in some other things. I think his bigger, he was looking as the emergency management coordinator, which is, I think he's got more functional issues at this point. As Tricia said, trying to put together a steering committee with all the firehouses, et cetera. All right, any other comments or questions? All right, then I'm also going to put together notes back to Jeff, and Chief Hawk. I will, again, I'll send them out to all of you for input and thoughts before I send them out. We'll get them out this week. So at least because they spent the time with us, I want to make sure that we officially get back to them, so they know we heard, what they had to say, and and that we'll continue the conversations with them as time unfolds, and as especially Jeff Wisner, who's the newest, as Jeff gets further into his role.
Marcy, will you copy PM Computing on that with Andrew?
Yep, we'll do that. Make a note. Copy.
He's getting a lot of questions from all three of them for all the items. And
Oh, okay.
it's like it's Christmas in town hall right now.
Yeah, I can understand that. All right, so that's on the department. Is there anything else from the, because I think we kind of combined the Department of Technology and 2023 budget items. Is there anything else that needs, Tricia, you need our input on for the budget?
No, I think that's a good start. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else think of other things that should go into the budget for next year?
Just the replacement schedule for computers and laptops, you know, however they're handling that, if it's whatever, 3, 4, or 5 year cycle, just make sure there's enough.
PM Computing is working on that as part of, that's why I'm asking y'all to send that through PM, because in addition to
Yep.
the big
Nope.
tickets.
Nope, I just want to make sure that now that we've caught up, that we don't get too far out again.
Yeah, we don't fall behind again.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. All right, any other business tonight, guys?
Good meeting.
All right, if not, then, do I have a motion for adjourning this evening?
Motion to adjourn.
And a second?
Second.
All right, thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we will see you all in September.
Hope you heal quickly, Marcy.
So do
Yeah,
I.
really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this was not, fortunately, he's little. He's only 5 months old, so, you know, it's just, you know, his hoof's only about yay big, which is, I know exactly where it hit. But anyway, joy.
All
All
right.
right, thanks, everyone. We'll
That's
see ya.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yep.